Just as Octavia Butler, her work is very much being celebrated, which I'm really happy about. When I did Xenogenesis in 2007, it wasn't necessarily the case that people even really knew about her work the way they do now.
Yeah.
And her work, we're sitting here in California. Like, she was here in California. She was at that LA library. I heard there was a fire or something in that library.
I didn't hear about
like years and years ago.
Okay.
But she spent almost every day in that library doing research, and all that science fiction ideas came from studying science and studying what was really being investigated in science. Like, it wasn't just all imagination, but it's imagination assisted by research, like serious research.
Yeah.
And I think she was living, in Altadena.
I think so,
And then the Huntington carries her archive now.
Right, I read that.
Yeah. So this area, is important to that. And it's actually important to my own growth and development too. I don't know if you know, like, I lived in Southern California part of my childhood, and one of the best things was that my parents were kind of like early, like, Black folks into the New Age movement a little bit.
Oh,
so they were
wow.
like studying meditation, and we were going to self-realization fellowship, and
wow.
It's like I had taken lessons, like Paramahansa Yogananda's like meditation lessons, I think when I was 16 or something. And so I think that was a great opportunity that also affected some of my artistic ideas. Yeah.
Well, I want to, I don't know if you mind saying a little bit more about Octavia Butler, but I mean, from the way that she influenced you to the way that you've built work, I could kind of say on the shoulders of some of what she's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to acknowledge Tashi Reagan and the work she's doing. Parable of the Sower opera has been really traveling all over, all over, and just gaining a lot of influence right now. And it's really rooted in community work, and it's a really beautiful project. And it's like we've never actually met, but she had some connection with Octavia Butler's family, I think through her mother, for Bernice Reagan Johnson. So I just want to acknowledge her work. But yeah, I started doing work inspired by Octavia Butler in 2007. I had met her in 2006 at the Black Writers Conference that Hakeem Madhubuti organized at Chicago State University when he was a distinguished professor there, and he's also a mentor to me and the founder of Third World Press, which is the oldest Black book publishing company in the country still to this day.
Wow.
And so I met her, and I was like, oh my God, I like really want to do a project inspired by her work, because I grew up reading her stories, and my mom was so influenced by her.
Oh, wow.
She wrote her own science fiction story, so, these books were on my shelf, at home as a teenager, and so I kept coming back to them, and I was like, I want to do this project. And so it was a real challenge, because I think my music for the most part had been fairly joyful and celebratory, mostly. And then now I'm like reading Dawn and the Xenogenesis trilogy, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is horrific. You know what I mean? And I'm like, how do I like sonify this? How do I sonify facing fear? Because we avoid fear, we run away from fear. We want to be comfortable. That's the whole point of being human, it seems like. Trying to create a comfortable place and constantly having to recreate it because things are happening that make it not possible. And so how do I actually make music that confronts this process of fear? And then I'm thinking about, that book really, I think, universalizes a lot of human experiences, like this experience of slavery, experience in war, when you're taken from your place, your family, and like put into this other foreign environment and you have to survive. Like, that's really what the process of that book is about, and the experience of that book expressed through fantasy and science fiction. And I was like, how do I even express that musically? And I had to really go deep inside and confront some of my own fears and like come up with this musical language that I had never come up with before, you know. And it had to do with, you know, some scary things that I experienced as a child, or you know, that were now being made like manifest like sonically. And I know that it's like taking an angle from what we would call avant-garde jazz, or you know, like black experimental music, which is, like I said, very different from Toshi Reagan's approach, which is, you know, like really connecting with the tradition of black protest music. And so you can take so many different approaches from Octavia Butler, you know, and still express what she was trying to say, which I think is, you know, just shows like the depth of what her work is about, you know. So for me, I had to, like, what my fears were, like, my mother was a voice hearer, so she heard voices, and sometimes it seemed kind of scary for me as a child.
Yeah.
And also my brother, like, he would play scary things, like he played the guitar and he would like try to scare me with his music and stuff like that. And so between those things, like, I think that's how Xenogenesis Suite like came, like sonically came to be the way it is. But it was really me trying to capture the essence of facing your fears through sound, which jazz critics were like, I can't snap my fingers to this. What is this about?